Alright, hello. It's been a while since I made one of these, so. One of my recent uploads, somebody asked about a status update of where everything is at with the case. Hopefully there are going to be some new people joining the channel pretty soon, so it would be good to catch those people up as well. So I will start at the beginning and give a brief synopsis. I was arrested for protesting in 2016 in a town called Boulder City, Nevada. And 2 weeks after I was arrested, I got a recording of the arrest. And I strongly believed at that point that the recording I had been given was a fake recording. That's a lot to get into, but suffice to say that I have a pretty good memory. In fact, I would say damn good. I'm not going to tell you any other things about myself that I'm proud of, but that is one aspect of my mind that is not deficient. I typically remember things, and I remember exactly what happened. This tape is not what happened. And that was the first time in my life that had ever happened to me, and I said, I think this is fake. In fact, I'm pretty sure. So I got a fake tape. My attorney didn't believe me at first. Nobody believed me. I tried to go to the news. Nobody would report on it. My father believed me because he knows who I am and what I am. But he was pretty much it at the beginning. We hired a couple experts. They submitted their opinions that they saw reasons to believe that the tape was fake. A year after, or almost a year after I got that tape, I decided to file a lawsuit. And now, the reason for the lawsuit was not to win $1 million. The reason for that lawsuit was to get Boulder City to give me the real tape. At that point, I still believed that the real tape existed, and I wanted to get it somehow. And I asked my attorney how I could do that, and he said we would have to sue Boulder City. Now, when they gave me this fake tape, they dropped all the charges, all the made-up charges against me, right away. We produced evidence that contradicted their officer's report of what happened. We had video of the incident that completely contradicted his testimony, his sworn testimony. And they dropped the charges, and they gave me a fake tape of what happened. Now, when I filed a lawsuit, they decided to reinstate those charges, which is illegal. You're not allowed to use prosecution as a revenge tactic for filing a lawsuit. But they did that. So they kind of used their own town's judicial process to kind of cover up the fact that this should have been investigated by another agency. So basically, you know, they did their own little evidentiary hearing. I'm sorry, I have background noise now. Is this gonna fucking stop? Okay, it did stop. Okay, so they did an evidentiary hearing. The judge looked at a bunch of stuff, and he found that the tape couldn't have been fake. If you actually read his ruling, you'll laugh. Okay, one of the arguments he cites, that the timestamp showed it was uploaded, very soon after the recording supposedly happened. So we're saying that a video is fake, and he's using a timestamp from a computer controlled by the same people that we said made a fake video, and he's saying, well, this timestamp has to be real, so I guess the video must be real too. No, shithead. The timestamp was fake also. Anyway, he also said that they couldn't have edited the video because no one in the police department would have been knowledgeable enough to know that you can edit audio and video as separate entities. Think of that. He thinks that the average person doesn't know that video and audio are different things and that you can edit them differently. In order to even formulate that thought, you have to be in the mindset that most people think that audio and video are the same thing and can never be changed independent of one another. So I don't know if this guy's ever seen a movie or, I don't know, just been alive for the last 50 years, but it was a completely ridiculous ruling. And nobody bothered to question it. So the whole town said, okay, I guess that's over with. We don't have to worry about whether this is fake anymore. Meanwhile, it's very much fake. And I was working to uncover facts and clues this whole time in the hopes that, when I finally did come forward, people would help me. And they'd say, oh my God, this is one of the most important discoveries of all time. Let us take it from here. That didn't happen, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So after this evidentiary hearing, this judge actually recused himself because the town prosecutor in Boulder City is a man named Steve Morris. He also happens to be the Mormon priest of that town. It's called the stake president. So he is a very high-ranking member of the Mormon church, and the judge who made that ruling happens to be a devout Mormon. Okay, there's a plane, sorry. So the town prosecutor is a high-ranking member of the Mormon church. I think he's kind of like a priest or a deacon or a bishop or something. Their equivalent of that. The town judge is one of his constituents. He's basically like one of the people in his church. And Mormons are way more serious about church than other churches. They think that Steve Morris, their leader, their Mormon priest, has magic powers of divine insight and that he knows the truth. So if he comes out and says, like, I don't think this is fake, that's basically good enough. It's not good enough. It's a fake tape. So this Mormon priest in this town, who is their new prosecutor, he's not the guy who filed the charges against me, but he's the new guy who came in after that guy resigned. He comes to this hearing and he says, it would be immoral to accuse the police of making a fake tape. Well, they did make a fake tape. That's what happened. And so these idiots are living in a parallel universe where they're prosecuting me for crossing the street and not prosecuting me for trying to expose a fake video that I got. So anyway, this judge later recused himself because he was so triggered by a Facebook post by my attorney about his priest, who also happens to be the town prosecutor, that he issued a gag order on my attorney. You're not allowed to do that. You cannot issue a gag order in a trial where there is no jury, because the whole purpose of a gag order is to protect the jury pool from being influenced by statements made outside the courtroom. So this judge in this small town issued a gag order that violated, I think, multiple amendments of the Constitution at the same time. That gag order was overturned and he recused himself. Guess who we got next? A woman named Margaret Whittaker. Now, at the time, I mistakenly thought that this was like a random judge assignment, that they kind of pick them all out of a hat, that there's like 50 or 100 judges it could have been. No, this woman is on the payroll of Boulder City. She's like one of their regular pro tem judges. She's on the payroll now. So guess what? If she rules against the city, she will stop getting paid by them because they won't nominate her to be a judge with them again. So you have a woman who was working for the city to come in to replace the judge who recused himself. How do you think the trial went? Well, I was found guilty, and she rejected my attorney's motion to dismiss on vindictive prosecution. Again, vindictive prosecution. When you prosecute someone in retaliation for them exercising their civil rights. That's what's happening in this case. After she finds me guilty, Federal Judge James Mahan threw out the lawsuit on basically no basis. If you read his ruling again, it's completely absurd. He says that we admitted that we did not have enough evidence to prove that the tape was fake. Now, if you look at my videos, you will see an extensive investigation performed by me that has managed to convince hundreds and thousands of people by this point that this is a fake video. This guy was not looking at any of that stuff. He was kind of pulling things out of thin air, like, I've never heard of a fake video before. This can't possibly be fake. I'll just kind of phone it in and make something up and then throw the case out, and that can never come back at me. The sad thing is, he's right, because a federal judge cannot be removed except by an act of Congress. So there is basically no repercussion for him making whatever ruling he wants. Fine. We appeal that decision. Now, after that appeal, and I'm sorry this is getting complicated, the criminal case goes to the district court, where Judge Richard Scotty throws the case out. He says, yes, this is vindictive prosecution. No, you are not allowed to prosecute someone in retaliation for them launching a lawsuit. That is not the purpose of prosecution. Prosecution is not meant to be an intimidation tactic against citizens exercising their civil rights. It is meant to enforce laws. Now, the prosecution and Steve Morris, the Mormon priest or deacon of this town, was found guilty of vindictive prosecution. These people, Boulder City, tried to disqualify the judge. That was rejected. They appealed the judge's decision to the Supreme Court. That was rejected. Judge Scotty's opinion was upheld. They still kept going. Now they have filed a motion to have an evidentiary hearing to triple check, to make sure that they are not allowed to prosecute me. Now, to recap, on June 8th, 2016, I was protesting government activity and I got arrested. Now, what was my protest? Did I chain myself to a tree? Did I lie down in the middle of a busy street? Was I spray painting City Hall? No. My protest was I was crossing the street in a crosswalk, not even jaywalking, crossing the street in a crosswalk. So on June 11th, we have a hearing to go over and make sure to see if Boulder City is allowed to prosecute me for something I did on June 8th, 2016. So more than 4 years after I crossed the street in a crosswalk, we are now having a hearing to see if I will stand trial a second time for crossing the street in a crosswalk more than 4 years ago. If you put this in a movie or if you wrote this in a book, people would say that is too stupid. That could never happen. But it's not happening in a book. It's happening in real life right now. And what's even worse, it's happening because when I got a fake video, I wanted the real video. I wasn't okay with that. They wanted me to say, oh yeah, I guess that's what happened on the tape. That's the real thing. And then move on with my life. That's why they dropped the charges. That's why they did this. I knew that that was very important to expose. So I went ahead and did that. I tried to expose the fake tape. I tried to fight for the principles of truth and justice and the American way. Sadly, I've been trampled on, I've been kicked around as a result of those decisions. It's as if they want me to learn that those values are meaningless, that truth is meaningless, and they might be right. I don't know. I have done my best so far to fight for the ideals of truth and justice. I have done an investigation. I have presented my findings to the people. Almost everyone who sees my stuff is instantly convinced that I'm telling the truth. So what is the issue? It's called collective inaction. And that was the one thing I didn't account for when I started out, was that the average person would be so lazy and apathetic that they wouldn't help me, even if I had proved everything to an enormous extent and shoved the proof in their face. Now, where are things right now? Well, there is a small window of time. Basically, when Judge Mahan threw my lawsuit out, that got appealed. We appealed his decision. That went to the Ninth Circuit, where a panel of 3 judges decided what they were going to do with the case. And, to my shock, 2 of them agreed with Judge Mahan. So 2 out of 3 voted to throw my case out. Again, on almost no reasoning whatsoever. They did not use evidence. They did not use facts. They kind of just went with what they felt like, which is a complete disaster. But it's something we've seen time and time again in human history. Again, it's a fake video. The only thing I wanted when I got that video was for everyone else to know that. And basically, I've done the work to prove it. That message just has to get out to the people. But with regard to the lawsuit, we can still appeal to the United States Supreme Court, the actual Supreme Court. There is still time to do that because the coronavirus has given a couple extra months to launch an appeal. So 5 months from the end of March will, I think, be the end of August. And we can still appeal that decision by that time. But I will not care if the crowdfund does not succeed in that amount of time. I actually never cared about the legal system, and I care even less now that it's basically proven that every level of itself is fake. All I cared about was getting the truth out that this is a fake video. That's it. This is a mass social experiment. You guys actually can fail. I have done as much as possible, and you will see that soon. You will see the depths and the extent that I went to bring you the truth. That is the ultimate prize. If you guys understand and if you start to internalize the fact that not just this tape was fake, but a lot of them are fake, and they have been fake for years, and they're going to keep being fake, and they're probably going to keep getting faker with deepfakes and everything. If you understand that that's not some sci-fi idea that might happen 50 years from now, that that's the status quo and has been for as long as you've been alive, then I will have succeeded. So the crowdfund is, if you think that's worthwhile, if you think education and truth are worthwhile pursuits, if you think this is an important discovery, if you think that standing up for truth and justice and standing up for your fellow citizens is the right thing to do and should be rewarded and not prosecuted, then I would appreciate your support. That is what the crowdfund is for, and that will make sure that even if the insanely corrupt legal system decides to issue a judgment against me for trying to seek the truth, that I will be okay. So in the past, I've asked for support. I was not kidding about that. That would be very helpful and appreciated. But again, I don't care what the courts say. You know, if you look at human history, the first person in human history to propose that the Earth was not the center of the universe was not Nicholas Copernicus in 1500. It was a man 1800 years prior to that, named Aristarchus of Samos. At the time, it was thought that the common conception was that these stars were tiny points on a globe that was orbiting the Earth, or revolving around the Earth, and that the sun and the other planets were separate from that. And this was thought because astronomers at the time could not see any relative motion between the stars in the sky. They thought that if the Earth was moving through space, that the stars would appear to change positions relative to one another, and that the fact that they didn't was proof that the Earth was fixed in space and the stars were revolving around the Earth. Aristarchus had a different idea. He thought that the stars were simply other versions of the sun, and that they were so far away that even though there was a relative motion between them, or a stellar parallax, we couldn't observe that because the instruments available were not precise enough. Aristarchus was right. So we know how that story ends. Because nobody listened to Aristarchus, and everyone fervently believed for the next 1800 years that the Earth was the center of the universe, it became true, right? No. The truth is a certain way, and it doesn't matter how many people believe a lie. That doesn't make it true. This tape is fake. And I have proven it beyond any doubt. That needs to get out to the people. And there needs to be a lot of doubt, not just in all these tapes now, but in the entire judicial system. It's completely impeached itself. Now, if you're still listening, I'd like to thank you. That was probably a disorganized ramble, but there are some things I'd like to get into with current events with Boulder City. Just recently, a man named Rob Martin was escorted off of the Boulder City airport by police because he had a conflict about his lease on a hangar with another person involved in the lease, whose name is Steve Morris. Steve Morris directed the city police to escort Rob Martin off of airport property. Now, Steve Morris is the city prosecutor in Boulder City. He is not the chief of police. But in this town, the prosecutor controls the police. He controls the judge. So, Rob Martin, who is an attorney, he knows what's legal and what's not. This is not some miscreant running around. He has a lease on a hangar, and apparently there is no provision in the lease that says he can't take the hangar doors off that hangar. So he tried to do that. Steve Morris used the police in the town to prevent him from doing that. Martin said he doesn't understand how he can be cited for trespassing when he legally is allowed to be on airport property because he holds several leases. He also said he intends to file a complaint with the State Bar Association because he believes Morris violated his duties by directing police to remove him from the property instead of filing an injunction to enforce the lease. It's a civil matter, he said. This guy knows what he's talking about. But the police and the prosecutors and the judges in Boulder City do whatever they want because there is no accountability. Where is the State Bar Association? Where is the Commission on Judicial Discipline? These regulatory bodies are desperately needed and they are not doing anything. I'd like to mention something else. I recently found out that both Dave Olsen, the person who originally filed charges against me, and Margaret Whittaker, the judge who found me guilty in an illegal sham trial, are both currently sitting as pro tem judges for Boulder City. So, let's start with Dave Olsen. Dave Olsen has multiple ethics violations on his record as a result of his involvement in a lawsuit filed against the city on behalf of his son, who was caught sending himself nude photographs from the phone of a student he was in school with. He found her own nude photos on her phone and sent them to his own email. And he was arrested and charged with that, and those charges were later dropped. And then Dave Olsen sued the city for doing any of that in the first place. He was sanctioned for that. He was sanctioned for appearing as an expert witness in his son's own case against the city that he worked for as an attorney. Why is the city council approving this man? This is the same guy who thought it was okay to prosecute me for trying to get to the truth. Instead of investigating the officer, they prosecuted me for trying to expose a fake tape. That is who they think should be a judge. So this person is now currently impacting the lives of more citizens of this country. Margaret Whittaker, who resigned from her job in Nye County after she was given a devastating pay cut. She is the only judge in Nevada who does not have a law degree. And apparently, the people in Nye County thought so highly of her that they cut her pay in half, causing her to throw a fit and resign. She apparently said, "It is just beyond my comprehension how my salary could put a dent in any deficit the county has. I can't imagine it," referring to her meager $19,200 in annual pay. That's right, Margaret. It was not about saving money. It was a polite way to fire you. These people thought you were worthless as a judge because you are. With Margaret Whittaker, it's all about the money. That's why she found me guilty and refused to throw the case out, despite the fact that my case was clearly vindictive prosecution. So, in order for her to earn a few extra bucks and continue serving on Boulder City's payroll, she found me guilty on the basis of fake evidence that I was only being prosecuted for trying to expose, making her absolutely one of the worst judges in the history of this country. Again, where is the Commission on Judicial Discipline? Where is the State Bar Association? Dave Olsen needs to be disbarred. Steve Morris needs to be disbarred. Margaret Whittaker can't even be disbarred because she was never an attorney in the first place. But the City Council needs to stop appointing these terrible judges and stop listening to Judge Victor Miller, who is completely in the pocket of Steve Morris. This whole town is a conspiracy. This is not how the government of the United States is supposed to work. This is how the government of Iran is supposed to work. Maybe the people who work there are confused and think they live on a different continent. But we need to show them that they live in the United States of America. So, I hope you got something out of this presentation. I can't rant about it anymore. I hope it was coherent. Please look up the news stories that I've cited to you for more information about this clusterfuck of a city that is putting its entire weight on the lie that the tape I was given on June 21st, 2016 is real. John Glenn, the officer in that tape, is now the chief investigator for the entire town. So 4 years after, or 3 years after I accused him of making a fake tape, he got promoted. And now every single investigation in that town goes through him. I'm certain he finds all the evidence to convict anyone he wants. I'm certain all of it is real. No, all of it is fake. Every single case that goes through that town needs to be thrown out. It is a complete travesty and a disgrace. The FBI needs to get in there immediately, and they need to go to every defense attorney who's ever worked in Boulder City and get every single recording that they have, because I guarantee the people in Boulder City have already destroyed all their own fake tapes after they watch my videos. All right, guys, so that video was recorded on May 17th, 2020, and a few things have happened since the day I recorded that video. For one thing, this guy right here, Steve Morris, you might remember me talking about him just before. Apparently, 4 days after I recorded that video, the Nevada Commission on Ethics decided to move forward with an ethics complaint against him, which was apparently filed by the mayor of Boulder City. So, 4 days after I recorded a scathing rant against this man, the Nevada Commission on Ethics decides to start reviewing a case against him. I've been saying that this person is a stain on the face of this country and an enemy of the truth for years. And now it looks like other people are starting to agree with me, including the mayor of the town that he works for. If you want to know the subject of that complaint, I'm not going to get into it. But suffice to say, it has nothing to do with anything I just mentioned in the video. It's for completely unrelated things. So I just think that's kind of hilarious. If I was some nutcase ranting to myself in the middle of nowhere about nothing that made any sense, why does the universe keep lining up exactly with everything I'm saying days after I finish saying it? The next thing that happened 4 days after I was informed about this complaint on May 21st, another thing happened, which most of you have probably heard of, and that is a man named George Floyd was killed by police in Minnesota. That was a tragic and gruesome death, and it shocked everybody. But sadly, that kind of situation is something I've been thinking about for years. Phrases like, "my neck hurts" and "I can't breathe" are things that I think about all the time. And I had been thinking about them long before George Floyd ever said them. Because those are the kinds of things that someone would say on a recording if they were being killed by police. The reason that case blew up and got traction in the media is because there was an accurate video recording of what happened to that man. But imagine a situation just like that, where there is no bystander with a camera. Maybe the person's being held by police inside a building or in some other location where there just isn't someone with a camera nearby. In that situation, the only recordings of that event are going to be completely controlled by the police. And if you think that those recordings are going to tell you the real story of what happened, you are sorely mistaken. Phrases like "I can't breathe," "my neck hurts," those are going to be edited out. And you're never going to suspect that that happened, because the person who died is not going to jump out of the grave and tell you that the tape of what happened to them isn't the real tape. That's why I've been doing what I've been doing for several years. Day after day, year after year. Because no one else would. Yes, they gave me a fake tape because I crossed the street, but I knew that they would do this to people who they had killed, and that they would probably kill people because they knew they could do this. That's why I'm fighting this fight, and that's why I have been fighting this fight on behalf of people like George Floyd and Freddie Gray for a long time. This is a blind spot in the legal system that you aren't even aware of, because this guy has been standing in the way of you getting the truth for years. He's been prosecuting me for trying to reveal this for years. When are people going to stop demonizing me and start listening to me? When are people going to start helping me and stop prosecuting me for trying to help these people? You know, I have more to say. I wish I could make 10 videos about this, but this one's already too long. So I will just say, please consider supporting the crowdfund. I have brought you this truth at great expense to myself. I have waded through obstacle after obstacle. The entire legal system has thrown its entire weight against me for trying to get across to you the idea that, the idea that all police tapes are real is a completely fictional and delusional reality. And, what a surprise. I wonder why all of these cities are burning. I wonder why these people are dying in the streets with this kind of shit happening. This is the collected weight of all of your bad decisions coming home to roost. They do it to everybody. And they'll do it for the smallest of things. So, thank you for listening. I guess I'm going to cut this off now. Goodbye. Thank you once again.